How are we all doing tonight? Well, I'm Ben, and this is my first time telling a story, so thank you for having me. We've heard a variety of topics tonight, various light topics, various dark topics, some heavy ones. I'm going to try to keep it light, so let's talk about death. Specifically, a near-death experience I had about 8 years ago. So the year was 2016, or as some of us call it, the before times. It was the scariest month of the year, July. Well, maybe the second scariest month of the year. I was at my cousin's wedding in Philadelphia. Now, I don't know if you know a lot about Philadelphia, but there's a lot of tall buildings there. A lot of tall buildings. And my cousin decided to have her wedding at the tallest building in the immediate area. It was 28 stories high, and there was this beautiful hall set up for a wedding on this side. A nice little hallway running along the edge of the building with the elevators, the bathrooms, the drinking fountains. Those will come up later. And then on the other side of the hall was the little dining area where we were going to have our reception and have the party. So everything's contained in this one space. So the wedding is beautiful, gorgeous wedding. We're all in the hallway for this intermission. You know, we're waiting for them to get the dining room set up. People are getting drinks. We're conversing with our family. I'm standing at a table talking with my grandmother and grandfather, both in their 80s, and I'm having an ice-cold gin and tonic. And a server comes by with a plate of hors d'oeuvres and says, "Would you like one, sir?" I go, "Of course, that looks delicious." So I take an hors d'oeuvre, and I go to take a bite, and a few things happen immediately as soon as I take that bite. I don't know how many of you know what anaphylactic shock is, but that's when your throat closes. So this morsel hits my tongue, and at that point, my throat starts to close. Now, the adrenaline kicks in, and really there's two ways adrenaline can go. Either you're not thinking at all, or you're thinking a mile a minute, you know, time's slowing down, and you're just running through all these different thoughts. Well, I had the latter experience myself. So as I'm standing here, trying to figure out what to do next, I have several thoughts all at once. The first thought is, we are on the 28th floor of a skyscraper. I do not have an EpiPen in my pocket with me, and no one at this party has one. So even if they call 911 for me, with 28 stories down and them, you know, riding the elevator the entire way up with the elevator music going, they would not make it to me in time. So I realized that my life was in my hands rather abruptly and rather unexpectedly. So while I'm trying to think about this, simultaneously I'm having the thought, this is my cousin's wedding. It's like the first wedding of my generation. I cannot ruin this. I cannot be the guy who upstages my cousin at her own wedding. So all these thoughts happen in about the course of a second. And I'm always going to be proud of how I handled it, because what I did was the suavest move I've ever done. I grabbed a napkin, I just politely put that morsel in the napkin, set it aside, downed the entire gin and tonic in my hand because it was ice cold, and you know, cold reduces swelling. And then I looked at both my grandparents and said, "I need to use the bathroom. I'll be right back." So at that point, I am now trying to do the weave through a crowd. I don't know if you've ever been through an airport or a busy school hall. You know, you're trying to do the weave, the bob, get past people as fast as you can. And I'm trying to do it politely because I don't want to cause a scene or cause a problem. But at the same time, I'm kind of dying here, so I need to get past these people, you know? And so those drinking fountains I had mentioned earlier that I had scoped out, turns out they had the cleanest, coolest water in all of Philadelphia. So I went over to those water fountains, and I parked myself on that water fountain for 20 minutes and just drank cold water, chugging, hoping desperately in my head, please do not collapse at your cousin's wedding. Please let the swelling go down. Just don't cause a scene. And the swelling went down. And after that, you know, after you've had a near-death experience, you want to share it with people, usually. Especially, you know, you're in shock, you're in relief, you're like, I almost died! But you can't go out and yell that in the crowded wedding venue. So I made a decision right then and there. I told my sister what had happened, and nobody else at that party ever found out what happened until today. 2 hours before this event, when I was talking to my mother, and she said, "Well, what story are you going to tell for the Story Slam tonight?" And I said, "I thought I'd tell the one about when I almost died at my cousin's wedding." And she said, "When you almost what?" And that's my story. Thank you for your time.